They sold the computer I built with my own money, without asking. I didn't yell, I didn't argue, I just packed my things and walked out. I built my PC from scratch over the course of 9 months. Every part one bought felt like progress. The GPU was the most expensive thing I'd ever ordered in my life. I didn't even take the plastic off the case until every single piece was ready to go. It wasn't just a computer to me, it was my work, my projects, my portfolio, and honestly, a piece of my sanity. I was 22, still finishing up school, living at home to save money, and freelancing online doing 3D modeling and some basic software work. Nothing fancy, but it paid the bills, covered tuition, and let me feel like I wasn't just drifting. My parents didn't fully get what I did. My mom especially thought working online just meant you're on the computer too much. She wasn't mean about it, just dismissive. She'd knock on my door and say things like, "Don't forget to go outside today," or "That thing's gonna fry your brain eventually." My dad kept out of it. He was more of the silent, "If everyone's fed, then I guess it's fine" type. My sister Haley was 17, a high school senior, full of energy, friends, and dreams about spring break in Miami. She and my mom had that hyper-close bond where they could communicate entire arguments with just facial expressions. I didn't mind being the quiet one in the house. I liked it that way. I stayed in the basement, kept my stuff neat, paid rent without being asked, and kept to myself. Honestly, I thought I had a pretty solid setup. I just finished a big freelance contract and had enough saved up to finally upgrade my rig. I ordered a new monitor and a curved desk. I was planning to rearrange my space over the weekend, get it exactly how I wanted. I came home that Friday around 5, carrying Thai food, ready to spend the night editing renders and reorganizing cables. I walked into the basement and felt that weird silence. You know that feeling when you immediately sense something is off, even if you don't know what yet? My desk was empty. Like, completely. No monitor. No tower. Nothing. Just the chair, pushed in neatly like it had been cleaned. I stood there for maybe 5 seconds, trying to convince myself I was hallucinating. Then I went upstairs and found my mom in the kitchen making dinner. I asked, "Where's my computer?" And she didn't even look up when she said, "Oh yeah, we sold it earlier today. Haley's trip got more expensive and she really wanted to go with her friends. You'll be fine, you can build another one." Just like that, no warning, no text, not even a post-it note. I didn't yell, I didn't say anything right away, my brain couldn't even compute it. I just kept repeating in my head, "You sold it, you sold it." I finally said, "That was mine." She sighed like I was being unreasonable and said, "Andrew, it's just a computer. Don't be dramatic. You're smart. You'll figure it out. Haley's leaving next week. She really needed this." I asked if she at least told Dad, and she said he knew. He was in the living room watching TV. I walked over and asked, "You knew about this?" And he said, "Your mom made the call. It's not the end of the world, son." And I just nodded. Not because I agreed. Because I needed to get out of that room before I said something I couldn't take back. I went back downstairs, sat on the edge of my now empty desk, and stared at the spot where my PC used to be. I didn't feel anger. Not yet. Just cold. Like something invisible in me had just cracked quietly without a sound. I didn't sleep that night. Not in the dramatic rolling around and punching pillows kind of way. Just couldn't shut my brain off. I lay there in the dark with that heavy silence around me, the kind that fills every corner of the room like fog. My desk looked like it belonged in an empty apartment. The power strip was still there. My headphones, which I'd left hanging off the side, untouched. They'd taken everything else. Monitor, tower, mouse, keyboard, the whole setup. It felt weirdly surgical, like someone had vacuumed my life off the desk. Around 3 in the morning, I got up and just stood there, looking at it. I remembered where each piece came from. The RAM I bought on sale during that insane New Year's promo. The GPU that took me 3 weeks to track down because of shortages. The case I ordered from some tiny warehouse in Illinois that shipped late but arrived 2 days before my birthday. All of it was mine. Not a gift. Not a loan. Something I built slowly with time, work, and actual money I earned. And they just sold it. Not because we were broke. Not to pay a bill or keep the lights on. They sold it so my sister could go party on a beach with her friends. I wasn't mad at Haley. I honestly don't even think she knew. She was probably just excited and said something like, "I wish I could go," and my mom took that and ran with it. That's how she is. Once she decides something is right, nothing else matters. Around 4:30, I grabbed my laptop. Not my main machine, just the old one I used for writing, and sat down with a blanket and started looking. Craigslist, eBay, Facebook Marketplace. I didn't want the exact same setup. That wasn't the point. I just needed something I could work on. Found a decent used tower with an OK GPU. Not top of the line, but enough to get by. It was about an hour's drive away. I messaged the seller. We set up a time for the next day. Then I looked around my room again and realized I couldn't keep doing this. It wasn't just about the computer. That was the trigger. But this had been building for a while. The little things that stack up until you stop recognizing your own home. The way my mom always treated my work like a hobby. How every time I had to turn down family stuff because of a deadline, I was being selfish. How no one ever asked how I was doing, just assumed I'd figure it out. And I always did. But it was never enough to earn space or privacy or the basic respect of, don't sell my things. Around 6, I made coffee, took a long shower, packed my backpack with essentials, charger, laptop, external drive, headphones, a notebook with client notes, toothbrush, socks. Then I grabbed a duffel bag and threw in clothes. I wasn't sure how long I'd be gone. I didn't care. I just knew I couldn't sit at that empty desk one more night. My mom was in the kitchen when I came up. She was making eggs like it was any other morning. I didn't make a scene. I just said, I'm heading out for a bit. She turned and saw the bag. Where are you going? I said. I'll be staying somewhere else for now. I'll check in later. Her face went pale for a second, and she crossed her arms and said, You're really doing this? Over a computer? I didn't argue. I just said, over everything. Then I walked out. She didn't follow me. Didn't call after me. That part hurt, more than I expected. Not because I wanted a chase scene. Just, I don't know. Something. I got in my car, drove an hour out of town, met the guy selling the PC. He was chill, a little older than me. We tested it in his garage. It worked. I paid cash, loaded it in the back seat, and drove straight to Lucas's place. Lucas was a guy the first knew from college. We weren't close, but we got along in class, and I remembered he once said his roommate moved out early. I texted him out of nowhere and asked if the room was still available. He said yeah, and that I could crash there until I figured things out. His place was a little messy, but clean enough. He had a spare key ready, didn't ask questions. I set the tower down in the corner and just sat on the floor, staring at it. I didn't cry. I didn't feel victorious. I just felt still. For the first time in a while, I wasn't waiting for someone to knock on the door or tell me to move something or question how I was spending my time. I didn't even plug the thing in that night. I just lay down on the spare mattress Lucas tossed me and passed out cold for 12 straight hours. I woke up to light coming through a half-broken blind, the sound of traffic in the distance, and the faint smell of something frying in the kitchen. It was the first time in months I didn't wake up annoyed, tense, or already tired. I just woke up, and I knew, even if nothing else worked out, I wasn't going back. I spent the first couple days at Lucas's place, doing nothing fancy. Just settling in, figuring out what I actually needed to get through the week. The room was small, just enough space for a mattress, a desk, and a plastic set of drawers someone left behind. But it was mine. No one walked in without knocking. No one asked what I was working on. No one questioned if I'd be available to fix the Wi-Fi or help carry groceries or drive someone to a dentist appointment they forgot about. I finally set up the new rig on day 3. It was definitely not as powerful as my old one, but it ran my software, and that was all I cared about. I emailed a couple old clients just to say I was back online, and within a few hours I had 2 small projects lined up. Nothing major, but enough to remind me that I was still functional. I wasn't broken. I didn't fall apart without home. If anything, I was thinking clearer than I had in months. I also found myself checking my phone way more than I meant to. Not for texts. I'd muted the family chat already, but out of habit. Like, part of me still expected to get a message from Mom asking if I'd be home in time for dinner, or if I could help figure out why the TV kept defaulting to Spanish audio. There were a couple missed calls the first few days, but no voicemails. That honestly surprised me. Not even a just checking in or a guilt trip. Total radio silence. Then, almost a week later, I got a message from my dad. Just one sentence. Let us know when you're done being upset. I stared at it for a long time, not because I didn't know what to say, but because it proved exactly why I left. I wasn't throwing a tantrum, I wasn't punishing anyone, I was just tired. Tired of pretending that stuff didn't matter. Tired of constantly being the reasonable one. Tired of being expected to take hits because that's just how family is. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Instead, I posted a quick update on one of the Discord servers I used to hang out on, mostly with other freelancers and indie devs. Just something casual like, had to move out after losing my setup, rebuilding now, back online. Within 10 minutes I got 6 replies. Dude, what? Are you good? Do you need anything? I've got spare parts. One guy even offered to send me a GPU he'd upgraded from, just because he liked my old project files. I didn't take anything, but man, that hit different. These were people I'd never met in person, and they offered more support in 10 minutes than my family had in a week. I scrolled through some of my old posts, realized how much I'd shrunk myself just to keep the peace at home. I used to be excited about my work, proud of the models I made, the tools I figured out on my own. Somewhere along the line, I stopped talking about that stuff entirely, because I got tired of being told it wasn't real work, so I started posting again. Just simple updates, screenshots, quick videos of renders. Nothing fancy. But it felt good, like I was taking up space again, even if it was virtual. Lucas noticed the change. One night, while we were both half watching some dumb action movie, he looked over and said, "You're like way more chill now." I laughed and said, "Yeah, turns out not having your life micromanaged makes a difference." He nodded and said, "Your mom's nuts for selling your rig." I shrugged. She thought she was doing something helpful, I guess. Or justified. I didn't even feel angry anymore. Just done. A few days later, Haley texted me. First time since I left. It just said, "I didn't know they sold your stuff, I'm sorry." No emojis. No extra fluff. Just that. I sat with it for a bit. She was a kid, really. 17. Caught in the middle of a house where mom controlled everything, and dad just avoided conflict. I didn't blame her. I wrote back, "I know. It's not your fault. I just needed space." She hearted the message but didn't say anything else. That was fine. It wasn't about her. This whole thing wasn't even about the computer anymore. That was just the last straw. I started looking for more permanent housing after that. Lucas was great, but it was temporary. I wanted a space that felt like mine from day one. Nothing big. Just a clean place where I could work, sleep, eat, and not feel like I was constantly being graded on how grateful I was to exist. I started budgeting, mapping out expenses, checking listings. And for the first time in a long time, I was doing it with a sense of direction that didn't come from anyone else. Just me. I found a small studio apartment about 25 minutes from campus. It wasn't anything special. Tiny kitchen, slightly stained carpet, a heater that rattled like it had a personal vendetta against silence. But it was mine. I signed the lease with money from my last freelance job, and when I got the keys, I just sat on the floor for a while with my back against the door, letting the quiet settle. No footsteps upstairs. No one asking what I was doing. No voice from across the hall reminding me to come say hi to Grandma or take out the trash. Just space. Lucas helped me move the tower and the monitor. We carried them in the back of his car like we were transporting something fragile, which I guess it kind of was. He dropped me off with a six-pack and said, "Congrats on being a real adult, man." I laughed, but it actually did feel like something real. Like a checkpoint. I spent the next 2 days setting up the space exactly how I wanted. Desk in front of the window. Cable management not perfect, but functional. A small bookshelf from a thrift store. A floor lamp from some guy's curb that still worked fine. I ordered a basic chair online. Nothing ergonomic, but way better than the folding one I'd been using. And slowly, the place started to feel like a real home. I got back to work too. Picked up 2 new clients, started rebuilding my old schedule. It was weird how fast everything started clicking again once I wasn't being constantly watched or doubted. My response time got better, my focus lasted longer, and I stopped procrastinating like I used to when I felt anxious just being in my own house. It's not that I was doing anything drastically different, I was just allowed to work without defending why I was working. I started sleeping better too. Deep, dreamless sleep that didn't end with me jolting awake at 4 a.m. wondering if I'd forgotten something. I was still eating instant noodles and cereal most nights, but it was by choice now, not because someone else cleared the fridge before I got there. One morning, maybe 2 weeks in, I woke up to a voicemail from Mom. She said, "Hi. Just wanted to see if you're okay. You don't call. I don't know where you're living. Your dad's worried. Call me back, please." I listened twice. Not because I missed her voice, but because I was trying to figure out if it sounded real or rehearsed. I didn't call back right away. I didn't really know what I'd say. That I was okay. That I didn't hate them but I couldn't be around them. That I wasn't being dramatic. I was just finally doing what I should have done a year ago. I let it sit for a day. Then I texted short and clean. "I'm okay. Got a place. Working. Will reach out when I'm ready." She replied an hour later with a thumbs up. That was it. A week after that, Haley posted a picture from her spring break trip. Her and 3 friends on the beach. All sunglasses and smiles, drinks in hand. I didn't feel bitter. Just disconnected. Like I was looking at a life that used to overlap with mine but didn't anymore. I didn't like or comment. I just scrolled past and went back to work. Later that night, Melissa, my cousin from Dad's side, messaged me out of nowhere. We hadn't talked in months. She wrote, "Heard what happened. That sucks. My parents would have caught hands if they touched my laptop." I laughed for real at that one. We ended up chatting for half an hour. She told me she was looking into moving out too, just couldn't stand the constant pressure at home. I didn't give her a speech or tell her what to do. I just told her what worked for me, that I didn't leave because I wanted to hurt anyone. I left because staying meant shrinking, and I was tired of living smaller than I was. She just said that actually makes a lot of sense, and we moved on to talking about dumb TV shows we both still watch. It wasn't a big moment, but it felt like something shifted. I didn't feel like the black sheep anymore. I felt like someone who finally said no when no one expected him to. And now people were starting to see I hadn't disappeared. I just started existing somewhere else. A couple days later, I was sitting at my desk, finishing up some revisions for a client, when my phone buzzed again. It was a message from Dad this time. No greeting, just, "Your mom is still upset. She thinks you're punishing her." I didn't answer right away. I leaned back in my chair, stared at the monitor, and thought about that word. Punishing. It didn't feel like punishment. I hadn't blocked them, hadn't trashed them online, hadn't dragged the situation out with drama. I hadn't even told many people what happened. Just moved out, quietly, and started over. But of course, to them, not playing my usual role felt like punishment, because my silence meant they couldn't use me to keep the peace anymore. I wrote back eventually. Just said, "I'm not punishing anyone. I'm just tired of feeling like my stuff, my work, and my space don't matter." He didn't respond for a while. Then he texted, "Maybe come by this weekend, talk it out." I didn't commit. Said I'd think about it, then left it at that. It was weird. I didn't feel angry, but the idea of walking back into that house made my stomach twist. I couldn't even picture what I'd say if I saw them in the kitchen, acting like everything was back to normal. Normal had always meant me giving in quietly, and I was done with that. Later that week, I got an email from an old client I hadn't heard from in months. She was working on a new game demo, asked if I could do environment models. I said yes, and she looped me into a shared folder with her team. Turns out one of the guys had seen some of my stuff on that Discord I'd started posting in again. Said he liked my aesthetic and thought I had a good eye for spatial realism. That comment sat with me for hours. Not because it was praise, but because it came from someone who saw me as I was, not the version of me my family kept trying to minimize. I started to realize that wasn't rare anymore. I'd built a small circle of people who knew what I did, respected the work, and talked to me like an equal. No backhanded, "Oh, you're still doing your little computer thing?" Just mutual understanding. One night, Lucas asked if I wanted to come to a get-together at a friend's apartment. I almost said no. Then I realized I didn't have a reason to avoid it, so I went. It was nothing wild. 6 people, pizza, random card games, music playing low from someone's phone. But for the first time in a while, I felt like I was somewhere without having to explain myself. No one cared if I talked a lot or just listened. I wasn't anyone's brother, or the guy who worked from home in a dark basement, or the weirdo who said no to family dinners to finish a deadline. I was just me. The next morning, while I was cleaning up my desk, I got a new text. This time from Haley. "Mom's been acting like it's the end of the world because you haven't come back. Can you please just talk to her so she calms down?" I stared at it for a while. Thought about how, when I was still living there, she never defended me when Mom snapped. Never once told her to chill when she called my work just games, or when she barged in without knocking. But I also remembered that she was 17, living under the same roof, still figuring out how to have boundaries with someone like Mom. I didn't want to put that pressure on her. So I just replied, "I'm not ready for that yet. I'm not mad. I just need space. Hope your trip was good." She replied, "It was, but yeah, I get it." I left it there. A few days later, I was at the grocery store picking up stuff for the week. Nothing exciting, just eggs, bread, canned chili. And I passed by a kid with his mom. He was probably 8, maybe 9, holding a box of cereal and excitedly explaining why this one was better than the others. She listened. She actually listened, not just nodded while scrolling her phone. It made me realize I couldn't remember the last time I felt like my thoughts were taken seriously at home, unless they were useful, unless they solved something. That stuck with me. When I got back to the apartment, I sat down and wrote a short post. Not public, just in a small locked server I trusted. I told the whole story, the PC, the decision, the quiet exit, the rebuild. And I ended it with this. Sometimes it's not about cutting people off. It's about stepping far enough back to see if they notice you're gone for the right reasons. I didn't expect much. But by morning it had dozens of replies. People thanking me, relating, sharing their own quiet exits. I read every comment. Not for validation, but because it made me feel less alone in the choice I'd made. Leaving wasn't dramatic. It wasn't some big declaration. It was just overdue. And it was starting to feel okay. About a week later, I finally called my mom, not because I missed her or felt some huge emotional shift, just because I didn't want things hanging over my head forever. I picked a Sunday morning when I knew she'd be home and less likely to be rushing around. She answered on the second ring and said my name like she'd been practicing it all week. I kept it simple. Told her I was okay, that I wasn't homeless or spiraling, that I wasn't angry, but I needed space. She said she was sorry, but it sounded rehearsed. She said she didn't realize how much the computer meant to me. I said, it wasn't just the computer. She went quiet. I told her I wasn't calling to fight, and I wasn't coming home. I just wanted her to know where I stood. That I'd found a place, I was working again, and I didn't need anything from them. I just needed some peace. She said she missed me, that the house felt strange without me there. I didn't say I missed it back. I didn't lie. I said, yeah, I'm sure it's different. She said maybe we could get dinner sometime. I said maybe. That was it. We hung up. A few days later, I posted a picture of my new desk setup. Clean, organized, with soft lighting, a used but solid chair, a cup of tea, and a little sticky note with a quote someone sent me. Create a space that feels like a yes. No one in my family followed that account. I didn't tag anyone. It wasn't for them. It was for me. Just a quiet record that I'd made something better out of the silence. Haley liked the photo. She didn't comment. Just sent a heart emoji a few hours later. That felt like enough. I started getting steady work again. Nothing huge, but it added up. I bought a decent webcam. Started streaming some modeling work on low-key nights. People trickled in. A few folks asked questions. One guy DM'd me asking if I took students. I said not yet, but the thought stuck in my head. Maybe I could build something more out of this. Not just survive, but grow. That idea felt new, not like a plan someone handed me, but something I actually wanted. One morning I got a message from Melissa. You ever coming back to visit? Grandma thinks you joined a cult. I laughed, replied, only if the cult comes with fiber internet and no one yelling at me while I'm working. She said, so never? I said maybe, someday, but I wasn't in a hurry. I was waking up better, eating better, breathing better. The silence didn't feel empty anymore. It felt earned. Sometimes I still thought about how it all started. One decision made without asking. One assumption that I'd be fine, no matter what. And maybe I was, but not in the way they expected. I wasn't fine because I let it go. I was fine because I left. And I stayed gone long enough to remember what it felt like to belong to myself. No rage. No revenge. Just the quiet, solid feeling of putting your life back together without anyone else telling you how it's supposed to look. And honestly, that was the first thing in a long time that actually felt like mine.